Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Anjali Sherawat, Program Director, BLLB Honors, School of Law, Ansal University. Before we start, let me explain how you can talk to us during the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, just write them in the chat box. Kindly turn off your cameras and keep your microphone muted for the entirety of the session. Do not tamper with the functions of the platform for a smooth and uninterrupted session. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Delay in Academic Calendar and the Road Ahead, organized by School of Law, Ansal University. Ansal University was established in 2012 under the Haryana Private Universities Act 2006, located in Millennium City, Gurugram. Ansal University has been awarded the National Education Excellence Award, Best University in Northern India 2017, along with CSR Excellence in Education Award for 2 consecutive years, that is 2017 and 18. It's a university with the core ideology of being futuristic, with the mission ahead for life. The curriculum design is guided by inter- and transdisciplinary approach, incorporating pedagogies that expand learning opportunities, ensuring higher order learning outcomes. Ansal University has 8 schools offering programs in various disciplines like architecture, design, and law. Let me introduce you to the School of Law. School of Law at Ansal University is one of the flagship schools which started in 2014 and has been ranked number 1 in the category of most promising law schools in India by the GHRDC 2019 survey. The school has been conferred numerous awards for academic excellence for 4 consecutive years by Knowledge Peace, Legal Desire, GHRDC, and INBA. It is a top-notch institution with outstanding credentials, committed to the cause of excellence in legal education. The school has faculty members from some of the best global and national institutes. The school seeks to impart cutting-edge knowledge to the future attorneys of tomorrow. The school lays great emphasis on clinical legal education, keeping up with its motto, learning by experience. The school has also adopted virtual mode of learning for its students to promote qualitative teaching, learning, and research in the times of COVID-19. School of Law offers 5-year BA and BB LLB honors, 3-year LLB program, 1-year LLM, and also PhD program. Over to you, Professor Arushi.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali. Good morning, everyone. I am Professor Arushi Mehta, Coordinator BB LLB Honors, and I, along with Dr. Anjali, will be your moderators for today. Now, today we have an amazing panel on delay in academic calendar and road ahead, where we will be discussing and deliberating upon the future of not just the current batch of class 12th, but also the future batch of 2021. Before I go ahead and introduce our panelists, I would like to inform all of you as to how we will proceed today. We will be taking up our panelists one by one, wherein they will deliberate and share their views. The audience is requested to please post their queries and questions in the chat box, which we will take up in the end of the session. Our first panelist for today is Ms. Anuradha Handa, founder principal of GD Gonka Public School, Sector 48, Gurugram. She is a distinguished educator and administrator with experience spanning 3 decades. A postgraduate in physics from Delhi University with a professional degree in education. She carries a unique ability of applying the principles of physics into daily life. Undeniably, all her actions and decisions are based on logic and sound reason. Having served 16 long years as a physics teacher and HOD physics for senior secondary students at Modern School Vasant Kunj, she forayed into policy making and administration, first as a vice principal of Amity Noida and APJ, and then as a principal at Amity Sector 46 Gurugram. In the year 2012, she opted to spearhead GDGPS Sector 48 as its founder principal, and in a short span of 7 years, established it as a center of humanistic education. Having a futuristic vision, Ms. Handa brings in her exceptional leadership skills into full play to direct the staff as well as students. I welcome you, ma'am. As you know that the current batch is soon going to get their results without major loss in their studies. But what has been decided for the current batch of 2020-21? We feel that they are going to be at a greater loss. We would like to know your opinion, ma'am, and your preparations to redress the loss.
Thank you, Arushi, and a very good morning to all my co-panelists present here. Uh, yes, we've been going through this uncertainty and all these questions and queries which have been, as educationists and as active members of the society, we have been trying to address all this. Rightly said that while our current batch of 1920 is standing at the doorstep and is in a zone of uncertainty with their results coming out soon, but then there is a lot of disparity that exists amongst them. But definitely there is a concern for the current batch of 12th, which is going to be appearing for their board exams next year, because for them, there is uncertainty in the sense that how are we going to manage their syllabus? Is there going to be, like CBSE and CRT are going to be coming out with reduction in syllabus? How that would happen? How will their assessments be conducted? How will their practicals be conducted? All of that, there are a lot of questions, and I'm sure they'll get addressed with time. But what is very important at this point of time is that how are we taking them through this journey now? Because we understand that our senior secondary years, they are the time when we are not only preparing our children for the board exam, rather we are preparing them for the bigger cause of higher education. We all know that in 11th and 12th, there is a lot of leadership and soft skill training that happens because the life after school changes. The kind of responsibility, the freedom that they have, the kind of ownership that they require in their university life and higher education is a lot different from the way we take them through their school journey. So these are the 2 years, where they require that preparation and they get those opportunities of leadership, which have got slightly restricted at the moment. But then we have to look for ways out. We have to ensure that they do not, they continue to get those opportunities and that training, which helps them take that life with full confidence. You see, the advantage with the current batch is that they have gone through the journey smoothly. It was only when they were appearing for their exam that this situation started to grow the way it has grown now. So for them, at our end, in our school, what we are doing is that even on the digital platform, even in the virtual world, we are trying to give them a lot of responsibility. We've taken them through research-based projects, because what we are emphasizing, along with ensuring that academically they are not at any disadvantage, the other experiences that they require for their preparation of the life ahead, that is something that as a school that we are emphasizing on. And I feel that, in that domain, probably even the university can be universities like ANSL who are into so much innovation. You can also come along and help us bridge that gap so that we are able to bring out a batch which is equally prepared for the years to come. So I think that's the point that I would like to make in response to the question that you have put up.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Thank you, Professor Arushi. Next, we have with us Ms. Aditi Mishra, Principal of DPS Sector 45 Gurugram. Ma'am is a career educator for the last 35 years. She is an alumni of DPS RK Puram and Lady Shri Ram College. She's worked at several DPS RK Puram, Vasant Kunj, Dubai, and heading DPS Gurugram since 2001. She's also received National Award from CBSE and has been a master trainer for CBSE. I welcome you, ma'am. And ma'am, as you know that the current batch of class 12th from Delhi NCR had to experience so much of uncertainty with the delay in the board exams, and now they have been cancelled altogether. So will they be at a loss as compared to students from other universities where board exams have been completed and various other boards? And are the authorities like CBSE coming up with any regulations for the current batch of 2020-21? As they are also missing out on a lot of opportunities by not having the regular schools. And ma'am, my last question to you would be that, if you can also shed some light on how 2019-20 batch exam result is going to be evaluated for the students. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Anjali. So you've asked me 3 questions. So I'll begin by first thanking Ansal for this idea, because only in our country there is a great disconnect between school and higher education. So thank you for being the bridge between school and university, and at least calling 2 principals to hear them. And we would like to hear from university what they are thinking about. So I'll first correct you, beta. The pandemic has not affected Delhi NCR alone. It's been global, right? And
yes,
you also mentioned that some boards were able to finish their exam. No board has finished its exams. The ICSE had to stop suddenly, CBSE had to stop suddenly, and IB declared a cancellation right in the beginning. Okay, so nobody, whenever anybody is panic stricken, my first words are relax, you're not alone. Everybody's going through this uncertainty. Everybody's going through these unusual times. So when times are as unusual as this, what is the first work of a mother, of an educator, is to calm the nerves. The moment you feel you're alone in something, there is terror. You are really scared. You don't know what's going to hit you because you're in it alone. But here, there is a safety in numbers. Everybody's affected. Somebody's done only 3 exams. Some have done 4 exams. In some parts of Delhi where there was a curfew, some children have done only 1 exam. Please recognize the difference. So in that sense, everybody is equally stressed out. But let me assure you that now with the cancellation of the board exam, which was to actually start on the 1st of July, there has been a sense of relief for educators, for parents, and for children. I'll tell you why again. As educators, the responsibility for the safety and security of each child, whether it's health or physical, lies with us once they come to school. So it was a very terrifying thought for us to have children coming in for a board exam in the middle of the pandemic, and the task was up to us to ensure their safety. Now, we had no idea how we can ensure safety when the virus is everywhere. We do not know where the boundary of the virus exists. The second tension was for the parents, who are very scared of sending their child to outside anywhere. They don't send them down to the park. How can they send them off to the school? So as you are aware, some parents had even filed a PIL in the Mumbai High Court, asking for a cancellation or a complete dissolution of the board exam, so that stress goes out. For the children, again, I think the stress has remarkably reduced, although I must admit that this batch has really had it bad. There were 3 months of tension when the child doesn't know whether he has an exam or he doesn't have an exam. It is the worst situation possible, because they can't really study because the exam is still 2 months away, and yet they can't not study because the parents will say, "Padh nahi rahe tum, board exam hai tumhare sar pe." So in that sense, I think the cancellation of the board has been like a boon for everybody. Now, what the plan forward is, I think there was some misconception that the internal assessment for CBSE will be taken. That is not true. Whatever exam the child has done with the CBSE, an average of those marks will be given, which is what most educators had suggested. Because after all, if it's a child who's been doing well or has got a certain mark in 3 papers, it is likely, not certain of course, that the next 2 papers would have been on the same pattern. It is extremely unlikely that a child who's getting a 50 or a 60 in 3 papers will suddenly get a 90 in the 4th and 5th paper, and vice versa. If there's a 95%, he or she would come down to a 40, 50, 60%. So it's a very safe formula which is being applied, that whichever papers they've done, an average will be taken and will be allotted to the next papers which have not been done. If a child is not happy with this, now children are children. They may feel I was going to do much better. There is an opportunity with the CBSE to reappear whenever they have the exam again, which can be at a later date. We cannot give a date because no one knows the date when the curve will flatten, when the virus will go away, or a vaccine will be found. I hope I've answered your question, Anjali.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, as you know that there have been so many rumors doing the rounds, and then there's this uncertain situation. As you've already mentioned, that not only students but the parents as well as the teachers, we educators are also under a lot of stress. So, ma'am, as even I was confused that who all have appeared for board exams, and somewhere I was reading, I really wanted to clarify it from you that if they will have an option, if they're not wanting the 3 exams to be evaluated for their final results, so if they will have an option, so you rightly told us that they do have an option of
Later.
being not satisfied with the result. Ma'am, also for the current batch of 2020-21. I also have a niece who's studying in class 12th, and she's like really worried for her future ahead. She doesn't know if she can apply for higher studies next year, because they do count on a lot of extracurricular activities, what you've been doing throughout. So ma'am, how is that going to affect those students?
Okay. So as far as I am concerned, life is going on. We've not stopped living. We're only living differently. So earlier I had a maid coming and cleaning up. Now I clean up myself. I had a cook coming to cook for me. Now I cook myself. I was meeting parents regularly. Now I meet them online. We were having functions face to face. Now we are having them online. So for me, nothing has changed, except instead of real time, we are doing it virtually. If you had planned this in your university, both Anuradha and I would have come to your university, sat face to face, you would have given us a cup of coffee, we would have chatted more. Now we are meeting virtually. So nothing has changed. So my reassurance for the children of the batch of 2020-21 is that nothing has changed. You now are in a, okay, they might hate me for saying this, but I think you're in a very privileged position because you have school happening and yet you have time to do other things. So all those who said, I really enjoy singing, but I really can't, get myself into guitar classes, or I want to do yoga, but I don't have time, or I really want to pick up embroidery, but I don't have time. Now, that is not the excuse. Now, if you're not doing yoga, it's because you don't want to do yoga, not because you don't have time. So, अब समय जो हमें नहीं मिलता था, वो समय मिल गया है. So this batch should not feel sorry for themselves, because in doing so, a little bit of stress will come in. They have to recognize their privilege. They have to recognize how fortunate they are that they have those who have happy homes and parents and good food coming in and a good school which is supporting them. They should be very happy. In addition, they have time. They have family time. They're playing board games in the evening. They're playing Antakshari or Damsharaj in the night before going to bed. So all those things are an add-on. If the stress is about academics, all the boards across the world, I think, are rationalizing the syllabus to keep in times that if in case you cannot do something face to face because of loss of certain hours of working, then the syllabus will be reduced, keeping that in mind. And I think all the boards are having committees looking into subjects, because you can't just announce that, okay, last 3 chapters of every subject are locked off. You can't do that. It has to be done rationally. You have to see which is, it could be a topic which has been done in the 10th, for example, or in the 11th. So drop it for the 12th. It doesn't matter. So if a child is appearing for a competitive exam, he or she is not at a loss. They've done that concept or that module, and it just won't be done again with you. So once the syllabus is also rationalized, the curriculum is made more logical, keeping in mind that some schools have not been able to have online classes. While we are talking face to face about this, I think we are somewhere forgetting the marginalized children, who are a vast majority. There are 65-70% children who do not have access to online classes. Although I must say the government is doing a great job of providing channels like Swayam and Swayam Prabha and the learning channels on Sky, which can be accessed by children if they have a device or if they have a TV. So these are things which are being done. I don't think 2021 needs to worry. The same things will happen. Universities which will accept them will now look at their online footprint. True. If they have not been able to do things in real time, if they were not able to participate in a million things, they can do it online. MUNs are still happening online. Inter-school events are still happening online. You can reach out to the less privileged. I mean, in that sense, I think Indians are very fortunate if they have a charitable bent of mind. There is charity every 10 feet from your home. Whether you turn left, right, or center, you will find people who need help from you. So give that help, document that help, document what you have done as community service. No one should sit back and say, I could do nothing because there was a lockdown. There is plenty to do. You just have to have the will to do it. And I think universities next year will also look at that. That what did you do? Okay, there was a lockdown, fine, but what did you do in the lockdown? So their parameters of admission may also change, keeping the new normal in mind. Thank you. Thank you, Anjali.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, so rightly put up by you that there is no dearth of opportunities, and safety is definitely should be our priority in this time of pandemic. And we all are fortunate enough, and then we should step forward and help the people who are in need, the marginalized one. So if the audience has questions for ma'am, they should write that in the chat box. We will cater to all the questions towards the end of the session. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views and suggestions with us. Over to you, Professor Arushi.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Kanupriya, who is the Acting Dean, School of Law, Ansar University. She holds a doctorate from Punjab University, Chandigarh, with over 12 years of experience in legal practice and academics. She has published articles online as well as in national and international journals. Her participation in national seminars and conferences have always been valued and appreciated. Her teaching areas include constitutional law, administrative law, interpretation of statutes, and legal drafting. Ma'am, since the class 12 students have missed out on a lot of opportunities because of COVID-19, so how do you think the universities should prepare themselves, and what kind of steps should the universities take to bridge this gap actually?
Thank you, Professor Arushi, for introducing me. So in the current scenario, wherein the students have been in lurch from the past almost 4 months, as we have seen, because of the delay in the overall academic calendar, whether it be transition from the school or moving into the universities. So there's always a kind of stress which the students are bearing. So, till the last year, the universities were all only facing that, yes, there's a change of environment from the schools to the universities. And accordingly, UGC also prescribed for the orientation program of at least 14 days. To bridge that particular gap and to acquaint the school students with the university environment, and also they become friendly with the curriculum which they have to adopt. This happens specifically in the professional courses, wherein the students, after graduating from the schools in 12th graders, wherein they were studying only the basic courses, and immediately in the professional courses, they have to put a grasp to the advanced courses. So we used to bridge that gap with the help of orientation programs. But during the current year, we see that the gap is going to be huge, because initially there was a gap of like 2 months wherein the students, they either go for, bridge courses or something like that in order to reduce that gap. But herein, wherein they have not studied for their final exams also, and there's a huge gap, they have not studied anything. Although there have been long series of online classes by various institutes, universities, but still somewhere or the other, we feel that, there is a lot of change which the universities also have to cater to. So, my major concern here is why there is always a delay by the authorities to take certain decisions. It's been, almost a gap of 4 months. Initially, the government decided we'll have the exams, and then they scheduled the exams also, wherein we were very much, sure. Why did IB cancel the exams altogether right in the very beginning? Why the other countries like US and UK have already declared zero academic year for the next year? They know that we cannot progress to that level if we have to include, only online classes are not serving the purpose to my mind. We can fill the gap, but we cannot make it perfect to the extent wherein we have practical courses or wherein we have hands-on training, which is actually required in certain professional programs. So how to cater to that? So that's the biggest challenge which the universities will certainly face in the next year, because we have already lost 2 to 3 months. So, for example, our own pedagogy, which is purely based on clinical legal education, where the education is not complete till the time the student actually visits a police station or a court to see the proceedings, how they are happening, then probably we'll have to cater all these proceedings through YouTube channels or through online resources. Certainly, pedagogy has changed, but my mind, this pedagogy is not sufficient to give 100% knowledge or to 100% skill set to the students. So therefore, the universities must start with certain kind of program, maybe some bridge courses wherein the students have already decided that yes, they are going to join. Say for example, a student has decided, okay, fine, I'll join a 5 years law program after doing my 12th. So in that case, we must design a curriculum which is of at least 3 weeks or 4 weeks, wherein the student is acquainted with what legal profession is all about and what are the essential requirements which a student must fulfill before joining the law program. So that is very much required, and it's my indeed desire that UGC should come up with. We have regulatory authorities in India, but the biggest plight is that these regulatory authorities are not having that kind of vision with which they should govern the nation. Even now, I would like to pinpoint a fact that even now, various universities or various organizations, the central authorities, they are planning to conduct the entrance exams. Are we in a position to hold the entrance exams when we know that all the students who are intended to apply for entrance exams cannot give the entrance exam online? So there is a multiplicity of audience which we have to cater to. So if we cannot hold the entrance exams, can't we hold the admissions for 1 year on the basis of 12 score? So all these issues are really very important, and the government should take the initiation in that. And it's my ultimate desire that the government should come up with stringent regulations in advance so that the stress level of the students is reduced. The dichotomy which is prevailing on their minds is also reduced. Right? It's not that the students cannot manage or the universities or the schools cannot manage. I think everyone is self-sufficient to manage all these kinds of situations, and the learning can be modified keeping in view the situation. But the thing is that we are always bound by these rules and regulations. We keep on waiting till the time CBSE gives us something or till the time UGC gives us something, respectively for schools and for universities. Why can't they give a free hand to the universities to decide depending upon this kind of students they have in the university? So if the students are sufficient enough or they have access to IT and other resources, then the universities can go on. If not, then the other modes may be operated. But it should not be left in lurch. So that's my whole request. Everything can be managed. Every situation can be handled. But it should not be dependent upon certain guidelines which we receive from authorities. And if yes, then those guidelines should come well in advance so that accordingly preparations can be made by all the stakeholders, in fact. So this is my ultimate request here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind and insightful words. Over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Next, we have in the panel Mr. Satish Kaushik. He is a consulting counseling psychologist, a certified happiness coach. Sir is the founding trustee of Rajbala Foundation, which is a national level NGO working in healthcare and education since 2010. They have set up a psychological counseling centers in universities, having more than 4,000 students and faculties. Sir has also been conducting live phone-in programs and on psychological counseling on 4 community radio stations in the NCR region for more than 2 years now, addressing mental health needs of more than 1 million people at the grassroots level. I welcome you, sir. Sir, before you give your presentation, I again have few questions on my mind, which I would want you to address. Sir, as you have seen the discussion throughout, we have been talking about delay in board examinations and then the board examination, getting cancelled altogether. And sir, I remember in my growing up years, I have always heard from my parents and my teachers, only these 2 exams are going to matter in your life. Your class 10th exam and your class 12th exam. So now you have to work hard, you really have to put in a lot of effort. So I remember that in my class 10th and 12th, I really worked very hard, if I make a comparison, the kind of effort which I put in my class 10th and 12th were almost equivalent to what I'd done in my, other studies in my other batches. So, sir, you see that, students prepare their whole life for that class 10th and 12th exam, and all of a sudden they get to know that they don't even get to write. They have been studying throughout those exams. And sir, the students are not only facing that, there have been delay in board exams, and then the result is not getting evaluated as per their choice, or or the way it should have been. So there is a further delay in admission to the university. That's also one challenge. So this all has led to and given those students immense stress, not just for the students, but also for the parents. Because, Indian parents, this is how we are. We are studying with the children. We are waking up with them late night, So the pressure is not only on the students, but also on the parents and also on the educators. So it's not only relating, the stress is not only relating to the future, sir, but also it's having a deep impact on the health. So how should the students, teachers, educators deal with it? And what help and support should the school, their teachers and parents provide them? Over to you, sir.
Your mic is off, sir.
No, sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you very much. Sorry for because it's new technology, and I'm learning actually. So the thing is, first is thank you very much, and it's a privilege to listen to all educationists and listening to the various efforts the government and the schools, and but two things are very prominent when I was listening to Aditi ma'am and listening to Kanupriya ma'am. I missed another talk. So there are two important things which are happening now. In this, Aditi ma'am said together. So whatever is happening, whatever is government doing, or whatever the educational institutions are doing, I think it will affect everybody equally. So I'll get better marks. I think the educationists or the people who are running education from the government, I think they will take a very reasonable and very, I think, win-win situations for everybody. I think some people may be at disadvantage because as you have seen, the students during the last examination, final examination, they work slightly better than the other internal examination. They are more serious during that period. But I think our educationists and our institutions will be able to take proper and reasonable decisions in this regard. Second, as Dr. Kanupriya said, everything can be managed. So it's a pandemic. It's a situation, different situations. We never thought that this will happen to us. But it's a new situations, and anxiety and stress are the new normal now. We all are worried. We all are anxious. We all are stressed also. But stress and anxiety are not always bad. As you must, a certain level of anxiety and stress is required in life to do something better. Or everyday job which we are doing, if we don't have anxiety to go to office, if we don't have anxiety to go to other working places, or working in home, or taking care of children, or all this daily routine, we will not be able to cope up with those activities. So up to a certain percentage, or up to a certain level, anxiety and stress are required. But beyond a certain level, anxiety and stress are harmful. If they don't allow these two things, if they don't allow you to work every day properly, you don't feel like going to office. You always feel stress, such as during this time, what is happening is we are having more mental health issues. We are having more and more people worried. Those who have got existing problems, mental issues with them, they are having more challenges to take care. So during this abnormal period, I'll say, so this anxiety and stress are, I'll say, new normal, but that can be taken care of. What all of you have said, or all panelists have said, I think this is one of the way to relax people. I think this is a good webinar which Ansal University or all of you have organized. I think it is quite relaxing for students also, and quite relaxing for parents also, that the things are going to be on the right track. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. Sir, as you are a certified happiness coach, and you have mentioned that, you know, it's the time when all of us are anxious and stressed out. So, sir, is there some key to happiness which you would like to share with us?
It's a we are in uncertain times. Everybody knows that. So uncertainty will be there. But as far as the happiness is concerned, I'll tell you, I was reading somewhere, there is a lady by the name Barbara Fredrickson and her partner Losada. There are the two people who have done some research that what should be the proper ratio of positive feeling and the negative feeling so that you are happy. So they have come out with a ratio that is 3:1. Absence of sadness is not happiness. So you have to have positive feeling and you have to have negative feelings. If you have 3 positive feeling and if you have 1 negative feeling, you will be happy. So that's the so try to be positive. But it doesn't mean that you forget about sadness or negative feeling. If you don't have a proper ratio of these two, I think the happiness will get affected. Second one is for proper relationships, such as husband-wife relationship. What should be the ratio? So they say that it has to be 5:1. So you have to be more positive to keep that. But excuse me, I don't want to discuss the ratio of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. So that is a very big ratio. So don't worry about that. But to be happy, what I'm feeling is because I'm doing research also on that's my research subject for my PhD. So there has to be a proper combination. There has to be a proper balance of these two things: sadness or negative feelings or the positive feeling. If you keep yourself, although there are so many issues, saying is easier than doing it, because we always say that you have to be positive, you have to be positive. But unless we go deeper into the reasons of any problem or any anxiety or stress, you will not be able to resolve those anxieties or stress, unless, such as Aditi ma'am rightly said, if you have information, unless what we are doing here in this webinar also, we are giving to the parents and the students and other teachers a proper information that this will be the way to go ahead. So when we get those informations, I think we feel relaxed, we feel less anxious, we feel less stressed, and it is a joint effort of all of us. You can't say that only parents have to do it. We can't say only the teachers have to do it. We can't say only students have to do it. We have to do it together. Let's fight this unnatural happening which has happened with us. Let's fight it together. Then we will be going towards the we will be more happier, we will be more relaxed. So that is required.
Sir, also if you can, share your views, how as a parent I can help my child, who are going through this difficult time. Because children are at such a vulnerable age that they get affected very easily, and then seeing you must have seen a lot of things are happening around. So what as a parent I can do for my child, and also how the schools can help those students in overcoming that stress, and then how they can provide relief.
Anjali ma'am, there is we are doing some faculty development programs also, in which one of the subject we touch upon is understanding your audience. Who is my audience? For whom we are talking here? To whom we are concerned with? So we are concerned with teenagers. You will see that age about which we are talking is they are teenagers. So we have to look into their developmental aspect also. What is happening to teenagers at this moment? They are going through physical development. Sometimes they feel puzzled also. What is happening to me? Whether girls or boys, what is happening to me? They are puzzled. There is nobody to talk to them about those changes. We know that the changes has happened to us also, but we never discuss with our children. So the physical changes, they are happening. Psychological changes which are happening, they are becoming more logical now. But the parents, most of the time, they don't discuss with them. They say that this has to be done. No discussion on this. No, but this is not the age. You have to discuss with your children because they are becoming logical. They will listen to you. They will listen to other people also. They will listen to the teachers also. They will listen to their peers also. So that is. Third one is they are making their personality at this moment. Their self-esteem is improving, their self-confidence is improving, and what we as psychologists say, that this is the time where if you help your child to have self-esteem and self-confidence, they will never look back in life. They will be doing it, they will be doing all their work nicely. And third one, which is third change which is happening to them is emotional change. They are becoming more emotional. As Aditi ma'am rightly said, during this period, if you send them for social work, if you send them to help somebody, if you ask them to work with you in a house, they will be happier. They will be feeling that they are doing something, they are adding something to the life of other people when they go for social work. And lastly, the social changes. Up to certain extent, social changes come in when they are going to school, they are talking to large number of people, so they learn social skills. So during this period, as far as the social skill is concerned, they are not able to touch base with other people, they are not able to hug anybody, they are not able to shake hands with anybody. So that is happening. But I think up to a certain extent, the digital media can help them. They can talk to people, they can talk to their family members, they can talk to their parents, they can talk to their friends. So when we are thinking about our children, teenage children, I think we have to take care of their lifespan developments. If we take care of them, if we understand those developments, I think most of the thing we will start thinking that it's another normal. Whatever they are doing, whatever the way they are reacting to our things, such as one of the things happened during this period is they don't listen to parents. तो आपकी सभी पेरेंट्स की सबसे ज्यादा शिकायत होती है मेरी बात तो सुनता ही नहीं है कोई, चाहे लड़का है लड़की है, सुनते ही नहीं है आजकल. They are always involved with their friends. So that's normal. Don't react too much to this. So if we understand these changes in their life, you will find these teenagers confused. What we in psychology say that during this period, during teenage period, if the children are not confused, there is something abnormal about them. So they are confused because what to do now? Now, during this period, what to do after 12th? 12th exam is not happening. So मेरा क्या होगा? तो ये चिंताएं जो हैं, ये सारे के सारे जो teenagers हैं, सबकी हैं चिंताएं. So they are worried. लेकिन अगर हम उनको information provide करते हैं, उनको proper information देते हैं, as parents, if we discuss with them, we sit with them, तो काफी हद तक हम उनकी worries और anxiety को खत्म कर सकते हैं. काफी हद तक we can take care of their anxiety and stress.
Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, rightly, you rightly mentioned that we have to accept this new normal, and we have to talk to our children. We have to talk to the students, and definitely, I would also want to give a virtual hug to all of them, those who are, seeing this first time. So, and also mentioned by other panelists that we have to engage them in something constructive. So
Yeah.
one of the things which is much needed in this time is that they step out and then they help the people in need. So, sir, thank you so much. I can see a couple of questions directed at you, but sir, we'll be taking up all the questions at the end of the session. So, sir, I hope your advice would reduce the stress of the students as well as the parents and the educators. Thank you so much, sir.
But Anjali ma'am, at this moment, I think we are all counselors to them.
True, sir. I agree, sir. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Professor Arushi.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali. Anuradha ma'am, I would really like to know your view on one thing, that since we are talking about the batch of 2021 which has entered class 12 and they've already wasted a lot of months. So what kind of preparations do you think the school should actually come up for this particular batch so that they are not at a bigger loss at the end when they're about to enter the university?
So Arushi, as I understand, my question is that the steps that we should be taking for this particular batch so that they are not at a disadvantage.
Yes, ma'am.
Since 3 months, more than 3 months rather, for them, when they enter class 12, we generally start their classes in March. So 4 months have gone by. And I totally, buy the arguments of all my co-panelists that while on one hand, as schools, we are surely doing our best by engaging them and ensuring that not only are they progressing well in their scholastic domain, but we are also working on their life skills and on their other abilities and ensuring that they get all the experience and they don't fall short in this year, because this should not become a limitation. And of course, it all depends on how much you are able to do, would also depend on the kind of infrastructure that the school carries and the kind of vision that the school management and leadership carries. And but see, right now what is very important for us is not only to ensure that we keep doing what we are doing, we keep engaging our children, because you see, again, as you had, when you were introducing, I do tend to bring in my physics into life, because I feel that physics and life are really connected. So, see, for any communication, effective communication, there are 3 things that are there. One is a sender, then there is a receiver, and there is a communication channel. So what we are doing as school, as teachers, what we do, we are senders. So we are interacting with our children, we are sharing the information, we are teaching them. Second, the communication channel, which earlier was a physical classroom where we would talk to them. We would use technology, but we had a closer look at our children. And, we could gauge from their response how they are feeling, how they are responding to what the teacher is doing. If one teacher could not catch that response, there were others who could bring that forward. And then there is a receiver. So when as an educator now, my greater concern is that while we are designing all those activities for our school, while we are engaging them in everything, we are reinventing, you see, because there are certain things that we could do in school very well. We are not trying to, as a school, bring the same model on an online platform, because we need to bring that change in. You see, let's say, if I was in my school, if I had a school going on from 8 to 2:20, I couldn't run classes from 8 to 2:20 on a digital platform. So we had to change that model. We had to bring in a 3-step model where, we are sharing first the module with them, then the child is, going through, and then the teacher and children are coming face to face. And that is so asynchronous learning, synchronous learning. But now the third step also we have added, which is very, very important. And that is to take the feedback from the children. That is to gauge how much they are responding to what we are doing. Because we as a school believe that every student matters. I cannot be satisfied just by introducing programs in my school and not being able to gauge that is each of my student receiving it. Because, at this point of time, if we allow the students to slip, if we are not able to gauge their withdrawal, then with time, this problem is only going to multiply. So therefore, I feel at this point of time, it is very important for us to readjust our pace and emphasize on this fact that is my receiver with me? Is my communication channel strong enough? Because my mode of transmission has changed. I'm totally digital. It is very difficult for us in a class of, the average class size that we have is around 30, to know that is each one of those 30 very much a part of what we are doing. So for that, what are we doing? So we are engaging our children into a lot of group work. Because, when they are engaged, for example, like I was talking of, that we've just concluded our research-based project presentations. So when they are working in a closer group of 5 to 6 children, and the teacher also is then interacting group-wise, so she is able to take a better understanding and charge of what is going on, and closely kind of being in touch with parents at this stage is very, very important. And we, all of us, all stakeholders, working closely with children, because our children are very precious for us. First, if we are able to take care of the well-being of our children, then we will be able to bridge any gaps that may come with time. So in that, what Dr. Kanupriya also said, certainty is very important. So if you are able to take right decisions at right time, as per the prevailing circumstances, I think then this year, is actually going to take us ahead than take us behind. Because as rightly said by, Aditi ma'am, that this is a different kind of an opportunity for us, where our children are in close connect with the teachers, with the parents, with the family. So they being able to do what they love doing. This is a better time for the children to discover themselves. Because all this while we kept feeling that we are all running and rushing. So this is a time which we are utilizing also to introspect and look within. So that thought process, if we are able to bring out in our children with a closer conversation, then they will value what the school is doing and what the parents are talking to them about. And I totally agree with Dr. Satish Kaushik that talking to children is very, very important. Like as part of our summer program, we did Goenka Broadway this time, in which we had 2 episodes, and one of them was, out of 10 episodes, 1 episode was only about baatein karo, talk. Parents say, friends say, teachers say, jisse, jo aapki jisse kar sakte ho baatein karo. Because is samay, so why I was talking of this particular batch of 2021 can be at a disadvantage, that, if their worries and their concerns are not addressed in time, then the kind of loss of time that they may have will be very difficult to compensate. So what I would like to say is that the steps that we need to take is that we need to we need to readjust our communication as a sender, looking at the channel that we have available, which is a digital platform, and lay greater emphasis on the impact on the receiver, understand that impact, go with a changed strategy, and ensure that proper effective communication is happening. Design programs which are in sync with this platform and this time. And for that we have to all come together. And the second a concern that, or not a concern, I would say the point that we all need to look at is the disparity that we have in resources in our country, which again, Aditi ma'am rightly said that 60-65% is the marginalized population. Now, there, what is very important is that, yes, we have to, kind of extend the helping hand there. We have to provide the right support there. So if our children are engaged in reaching out, our teachers are engaged in reaching out there, we are engaged in reaching out, we need to bridge that gap. Because next year, when from amongst these children, when they will all come to you, probably as a university to manage that disparity, you may not be prepared. Because you are used to managing a certain disparity which already exists on account of the difference in the resources that are available to people. But this becomes an added difference because not everybody would be able to adapt to the same extent to this change which has happened, the new normal, So the kind of availability, because I recently had we are a lead school in terms of the CBSE has designated one school to be leading and helping another 4 or 5 schools. So a principal from another school who is part of our group called up and said that my children, because we don't have those kind of resources and they don't understand the value of the time that is going by. We have about 50% attendance in our school that we've seen before the holidays. So I am worried that how do we go about it? Now that's a reality. Those 50% children who've hardly been attending classes for whatever reasons, lack of motivation or lack of resources, in comparison to the other 50% in their school who are attending with those resources, compared to a DPS, a GD Goenka, where we have almost 100% children attending classes and with newer programs. I think this is something that for future we need to gauge and be prepared for. So I hope that I have been able to address the question that you had put up.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. And I totally agree with you that, we have a lot of differences in our country with respect to the infrastructure. We have, certain sectors where the schools are not really equipped. And I think the authorities, as you rightly pointed out, should, come up with some kind of plan so that the schools who are privileged enough, can head those schools with these kind of resources or, infrastructure and help them to, get out of the situation and probably bridge the gap. And I really hope that your suggestions and the viewpoints which you pointed out would give some kind of relief to the current batch who's there in 2021. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. Over to you, Dr. Anjali.
Thank you, Professor Arushi. I think now we can take up questions from the audience. And Professor Arushi, would you like to do that, or?
Ma'am, you can carry on with the first question probably.
Okay. So first question is, I think, directed to Mr. Satish. Mr. Deepak Meglani is wanting to know that if online education increase the chances of depression and negative feeling. So sir, it's a very relevant question if we see the current scenario that, even the schools are going virtual, universities are going virtual. So, sir, is it not leading to some kind of depression and negative feeling? There's so much of pressure on the students, the educators and the parents. Or if any of the principal ma'am would like to address this question.
Anuradha ma'am. Because
Anuradha ma'am, can we have your... Yeah.
I think, can I just once again, I really didn't get the perspective of the question. If I can once understand it and then I'll...
Ma'am, I'll read out the question to you again. Ma'am, the question is that, we all are going online. We are going virtual in pedagogy, as in terms of learning, research, and as you were mentioning also that, all the competitions are also being on the virtual platform. So, ma'am, in this time of COVID-19, when, parents as well as children are already stressed out, is it right on our part from the educator side or the university or the school that, we put so much of pressure on the children that, is it not really, should we see the positive side of it? Because, there's definitely a negative side to it. Children are definitely stressed and depressed. So should we put that kind of pressure on the children?
I think what I get from this and what comes to my mind as an answer to this is I would refer to what Dr. Satish Kaushik just said, pressure is important, but in right proportion, because it somewhere motivates you. It should not take you to such a low from where you cannot rise. So which means that, again, here what is important is we need to go on with what we are doing, but keep reevaluating in terms of that it should not become such a burdensome, in terms of to ensure that we have to finish our syllabus, to ensure that the children must submit their work by that time. So we have to be little more empathetic. We have to be having a greater reach to our children and understand their problem and provide a solution. That doesn't mean we do away with assessment. That doesn't mean that we do away with creating that little pressure is important. Otherwise, the children will lose that motivation and will to perform. So the balancing act at this point of time has become more important than ever in the past. And again, I would reiterate on the same fact that when as a teacher, I see my children in the class, from the response, that their body language, their facial expressions, even if they don't say that, I am still able to gauge the kind of, the kind of process that I need to undertake or modify my approach, which at this point of time, it is difficult to gauge. That is one bigger problem with the digital setup, that it is very difficult to make out what is going on in your heart and what you are actually talking, because your face is only a small part of your body says more than what your face says or what you speak. So we need to go deeper and catch our children and accordingly strategize ourselves. There is no single stick rule that will work at the moment. Greater flexibility is required by us at this point of time, and a better understanding of our children.
And
thank you so much
Anjali,
for sharing your views. Yes, sir, please.
To me, because I have seen this controversy for the last 25 years, I'm listening to this, that digital is better, or instructor-led training is better. There's a controversy which is going on for the last 25-30 years, I have seen. Most of the time, the initial years in 2000 or earlier years, it was, अरे इंस्ट्रक्टर-लेड ट्रेनिंग नहीं है, कोई सामने नहीं दिखाई दे रहा तो मजा नहीं आएगा पढ़ने में. लेकिन आप ये देखिए कि ड्यूरिंग दिस पेंडेमिक, इट्स अबनॉर्मल टाइम्स. आप इसके थ्रू पढ़ पा रहे हैं, अपनी जो कमियां हैं या जो आप एजुकेशन है उसको कैरी फॉरवर्ड कर पा रहे हैं. आपका जो डिले जो हो रहा है उसका लॉस मिनिमम हो, वो हम लोग डिजिटल तरीके से कर पा रहे हैं उसमें. तो शुरू में टेक्नोलॉजी also create anxiety sometimes, such as people like me who was now learning how to use technology. The people who are slightly older, they are not exposed to technology as today's students are being exposed. So they are in a better position than us to take care of the technology or make use of this technology. Secondly, as Anuradha ma'am rightly said, the way we are teaching our students, that has changed. How to get the maximum response from the students. Now all teachers and everybody is working on that area. Third one is the third pillar of education, the parents who were not involved earlier. Now they are involved with their children education. So the digital platform is providing, to an extent, it is providing a very good opportunities and very good facilities to give them better education. Up to a certain extent, if it is in excess, then it can create some anxiety or stress. But I think it's a good way of giving education. And third one is the employability of the students are also increasing with digital learning, because in companies, if you go to corporates, they prefer that the people, they learn themselves. They go to internet, they go to other portals and learn themselves. They don't have time to teach the new recruits. So it is improving employability. So I don't think it is affecting us adversely.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think here I would also like to agree with the, that, this is the option that is available to us and we have to utilize it in the best possible way. It cannot, the option is not bad, but exercising it rightly is very, very important.
True.
So it's the best option available at the moment. You can't do away with it. Absolutely not.
So, ma'am, both of you had something common to say, as rightly put up by you, that learning has to be a continuous process, and we have to adapt to change. So, ma'am, Mr. Amit Kumar Singh has written in the chat box that you nicely expressed that we should be empathetic with learners from the learner's perspective. And Professor Arushi, if you would want to take up.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I think Professor Amit also has a question. He's asking that are we heading, towards information without wisdom and knowledge? I would really request if Aditi ma'am can answer that question.
Okay, I don't think that's a very fair question, because I think all education does not necessarily come from textbooks. Education is not necessarily happening only in classrooms. Education is a sum total of a lot of experiences and skill sets which get formed. I said this earlier as well, that in a school system, there is an interaction of the parent and the teacher and the child. In the online system, there is an interaction of all three stakeholders, the parent, the teacher, and the child. And together, a lot of learning is happening. Together, a lot of sharing is happening. Some bonds are being formed which had not had the time to be formed, actually. For whatever reason, there was a tendency to sort of relegate education to just the textbook. But now, I'm going back to the time factor and the fact that there are more conversations. I think learning has become more wholesome. There is more time, certainly. And there are certain skills which sometimes get neglected in school, which are now, I'm seeing them coming to the forefront, because schools like ours have a little conversation at the start of the lesson. We talk about what you did the previous day, how did you help somebody, what did you do at home. And all that, I think, is leading to the ultimate wisdom of being useful. Because I think those days are gone where information was the key, because information is now available with Google all the time, anytime. So I don't think it's an information age, and I genuinely think that sometimes we are veering too much on the negative. I didn't like the way the word wasted was used. That time has been wasted. Time is never wasted. And if you really want to waste time, you'll waste it even in the normal circumstance. You can be sitting in class and not listening to the teacher. So what we do with time is completely up to us, whether we use it wisely or we choose to not use it wisely. Likewise, if I can even address what Dr. Kanupriya had said about why decisions were not taken earlier, if I can just add a little bit on that. There is a beautiful thing called the power of hindsight. Hindsight में कुछ भी दे दो कि उस वक्त ये करना चाहिए था, हम वो कर सकते थे, गवर्नमेंट ने वो क्यों नहीं किया. Did we in March know that it's only going to go downhill? We didn't. So I think, again, I've said this before also in another forum, if the decision about the board exam was a simple one, it could have been taken in one day. But it's a very complex problem. We have a very complex country. We have different requirements across the states. So it took time. Let us respect the government for taking time, pondering, deliberating, taking in stakeholders, and then coming to a consensus situation, a solution which would benefit everybody and at least make the maximum people happy. So let's not always look at the negative, ki ye nahi hua aur wo nahi hua. It is a very unusual situation we are in. In our lifetime, we've not faced a pandemic. Let us accept that. So when something so unnatural is happening, can we at least embrace that and look at positivity around us? So anyone talking about wastage, time waste ho gaya, syllabus nahi hua, 0 year kyun nahi hua, let us just focus on the positive. What can we do in this situation? What good can we do to others? What good can we do to ourselves? What skill sets can I improve in myself? If I'm a bad speaker, can I record myself and hear myself speaking? If I'm fond of movies, can I start making a movie at home? So things can be done if you you seek and you'll find. If you don't seek, if you just sit back and say horrible time wasted, then the story's over right there.
Yes,
Thank you.
rightly pointed out, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So, ma'am, all of us are speaking about, how well equipped the schools are, to deal with the situation, how well equipped the universities are, how they're preparing themselves. So, we have a very relevant question here by Kishore Munshi. He's wanting to know that what should be the ideal student-teacher ratio in online teaching in a classroom? And should it be same as in actual classroom teaching? Should we reduce the number of students or should we increase it? So this question, I would like all the principal ma'am and as well as Kanupriya ma'am to address this question. So ma'am, we can start with you, Anuradha ma'am.
See, as far as the classroom, the digital medium is giving us an opportunity to have a variable class size, Mane. We make use of, so we are doing webinars. There is certain information, certain teaching learning that can happen through webinars, micro webinars, Google Meet. For example, we are using the G Suite platform. All right. And then we can have small group discussions. We can have programs where we can have enhancement, enrichment, etc. happening. So there is no need to fundamentally change the class strength, but there are a lot of ways in which we can experiment and ensure that the proper teaching learning is happening.
Thank you, ma'am. Aditi ma'am, if you can share your
I think I
viewpoint
agree
on this.
completely with Anuradha. There is no reason to change the class size, because in our wisdom, if we change the class size and we suddenly find that we have separated a couple of best friends, then we are doing a greater disservice than service. Right? At least they can see each other, online. After every 10 minutes of teaching, we do give them a little 5-minute time for little banter, little chit chat.
Great.
So in our wisdom, if we keep a class of 38, we reduce it to 19, and we find suddenly everybody's best friend is in the other group, then we've really done a disservice. So we've tried to keep it as normal as possible, except, like I said, there is no uniform. I have not insisted on uniform. I've just said don't be in your night suit and don't sit there without brushing your teeth. Just be decently dressed. You can be in a t-shirt, you can be in a salwar kameez, whatever you want. But I think we are trying to simulate a normal class in the best possible way, trying to make the best out of a situation which has been thrown at us suddenly.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we all need to follow the protocols, and we also need to understand that there is so much of pressure on the teachers as well.
And
It's not only the
student and the parent. Let us not forget that, So
True, ma'am. True. So, Dr. Kanupriya, if you would like to share your views on this.
I think I also hold a parallel view with regard to the strength on the online classes, because what matters in the online classes is not the number of people. In fact, I would say we are providing them a medium wherein they can interact with each other as well. So why to take away that freedom from the students? So in fact, we should encourage more and more students to come and perform in the one mode, so that they are able to interact with each other and also have that cross learning rather than learning in an independent bracket. So this is what is required in the present circumstances. For example, if we are holding a panel discussion, we have more than 100 audience, that's more than enough. We can definitely handle their questions. But if we are taking a project presentations or something like that, then the number automatically reduces to a group. So it varies from case to case. It cannot be put in a standard bracket as to this much number of students should be there in the online class.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have another question from Professor Sulakshana over here. She is asking that, is this coronavirus outbreak is leading to a new educational revolution in India? So is the digital education taking over the conventional education? Are we really replacing it with the conventional education platform?
So I have one point here to say. So before I give it over to the other panelists, so we have already headed towards it. The new UGC regulations, the new freedom which UGC has given to the universities to provide online degrees, that's a step towards that. So I think we are all geared up for that. Over to the other panelists.
So I feel that what we are heading towards is more of a blended learning, with online and offline coming together. I think it's going to benefit a lot of students and perhaps a lot of teachers, because this is something we had for some reason never thought of in schools. That if a teacher is unable to come to school, but she has 2-3 hours to take a class, can she possibly take it from home? We had never tried it. But now this unusual circumstance has helped us to try it and try it successfully. And likewise for students, if they're unable to come to school for any reason, it could be health, it could be, the parent needing them at home for something, or a coaching class or Fiji or whatever, which they get stuck with in 11th and 12th. In that situation, maybe the online class can benefit them because they're not missing out then. The content is available to them whenever they may want to go there. So I think digital technology has really supplemented and has come to the rescue for the traditionalists also like me. And like Professor Kaushik had said that, children are digital natives. But I think I must at this moment clap for all the teachers across the country and the globe who have embraced technology very successfully, very happily, with baby steps. Of course, they fell on their face. We all did. But they rose, dusted themselves down, and got back into the digital teaching, into that arena, because that was the only way forward. So that never say die attitude of the teachers has somehow radiated to children also. And I think that's a great skill which will unfortunately not be ever assessed. But I think it will hold the children in good stead wherever they may go in the future.
True, ma'am, rightly put up by you that we all are learning. Even my 70-year-old supervisor, she also calls me often and asks me that, how can I log into a webinar and how I can access all these platforms. So, ma'am, it's a new normal. We all have to accept that. We have to adapt. And I think we have had a very constructive discussion over here. And
I think Anuradha ma'am also wants to. I think Anuradha ma'am also wants to share her opinion on the same point.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, so I would just completely like to second what Aditi ma'am just said, that first of all, we need to applaud our teachers in the educational fraternity, because the way they took charge, the way they responded to this situation, never looking back, giving themselves completely for the cause of children and digital education. They have never, they've overlooked the boundaries of time, and the only thing that they've looked at is that the children should not be at any kind of a disadvantage. So first of all, I totally marvel them and applaud them for what they've done. And the second thing, yes, we are in for a hybrid model to go. We are going to be more creatively making use of the technology and online classes in the days to come. And a lot of things which probably we could have done earlier, and now that we were put on this track, so we are surely going to be taking that ahead, which also includes a lot of times we struggle to have some remedial classes, some enhancement classes, or Olympiad classes. So that also we will be able to take up now simply by having the children logging in from home. So I think this experience has really equipped us in a lot of ways for future. So conventional education, I mean, there is no replacement for teacher, there is no replacement for school. We know that the children are just longing to be back in school. They are looking forward for that. So I think the value of the students and teachers being together in school will get enhanced, in fact, in the days to come. But yes, we will integrate technology in a more beneficial way, both for students and for teachers and for society. So.
It's
Thank
very
you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, you very rightly said, if you want to know the value of a particular thing, just stay without that thing for a short time and you will get to know what is the value of that thing. It's really very nice, Anuradha ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. I would really like to thank everyone, and as of course all our panelists pointed out, first of all, a great probably congratulations goes out to all the teachers, all the teaching fraternity who's over there. And I would also like to thank everyone. We appreciate all of you being here, being a part of this fruitful discussion. I would also request that there is a feedback form being shared for you in the chat box. So if all of you could please fill in before leaving the session, it will be really great for us. On behalf of School of Law, Ansel University, I, Arushi Mehta, would extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers present over here, Anuradha ma'am, Aditi ma'am, Satish sir, and Professor Dr. Kanupriya, for sharing their imperative insights into this important topic. The ambiguity about the board exams, the delay in the academic calendar, and many other topics must have disappeared after this informative session. And I'm sure it will surely help our students to make an informed decision in the future. I also extend a very heartfelt thanks to our Vice Chancellor for giving us this opportunity to conduct this event and being a guiding vision for all of us. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.